The boat race is an annual race between Oxford and Cambridge University. The first boat race took place on June 10th, 1829. Oxford won this race easily. The next 25 years of boat races only saw irregular races. The race became an annual event in 1856. Until 1935, the boat race was judged on time and style. From then on, the race was conducted with both boats on the river at the same time, in a straight race. Between the years 1920 and 1936, Cambridge only lost one boat race, with 16 wins from 17 races, with a 13-year win streak between the years 1924 and 1936. Two of these wins were the first 2 years the race was conducted with both boats on the water simultaneously. This time period saw the club retaining many of their crew members for the race from previous years. The image on screen will portray this, shown in the years 1925, 26, 27, 29, 31, 32, 35 and 36, saw Cambridge retaining 4 of their crew members from previous years. 1928, 30 and 33 saw them retain 3 of their crew members, and in 1934 retaining 2. In 1924, the Gloucestershire Echo stated that Oxford had a clear advantage going into the race due to the suggested superior power of the Oxford crew portrayed by their size and weight. Despite this suggestion, Oxford lost this event by 4.5 lengths, as Cambridge recorded the second best time in the history of the event. This can only indicate that Cambridge made better use of their training and perfecting their technique. It was also reported that Oxford's stroke was noticeably clumsy, rendering their greater power ineffective. J. A. Brown, pictured right, was the coxswain for Cambridge on this occasion, and continued to be the coxswain for Cambridge, winning 4 consecutive boat races against Oxford, competing in his last in 1927. A report by H. G. Hodder, published in the Illustrated Sporting and Dramatic News on April 5, 1935, expressed that Cambridge should win the upcoming boat race, mentioning some of the training conducted by the crews, even mentioning Oxford's daring acquisition of Mr. Peter Haig Thomas, a coach described as having an avuncular attitude towards Cambridge University Rowing Club. Despite this, Cambridge were still victorious. This probably is due to the dominant factor in Cambridge rowing, which has been a modern style of rowing and coaching. This modern style was first introduced by Mr. Fairbairn to the Jesus College Boat Club, and exploited by Mr. Archie Nesbitt and Pembroke crews. The method cut right across the old university tradition of teaching the art. This method encourages the use of swivel rowlocks as a tool for training in competition, and are still used even today. Archie Nesbitt kept the Cambridge crew building on their technique with swivel rowlocks, making them slog away on the cam with an imperfected and inappropriate stroke. Nesbitt's passion for the crew to complete high mileage in training led to the crew becoming increasingly fatigued, even becoming stale twice in the stage of 6 weeks. While Nesbitt was putting the Cambridge crew through high mileage, Haig Thomas took 16 men to Henley, then Goring, in an attempt to increase their efficiency. Both coaches had very differing problems throughout preparation for the race. On one hand, Nesbitt had a tiring crew that would perform incredibly in a test, and then a mere 7 days later would perform dreadfully. Whereas Haig Thomas, a usually optimistic man, had lost some of his optimism when his crew had smashed their oars, their rowlocks, and damaged their boats in what was described as an orgy of clumsiness. Unfortunately, things turned from bad to worse for Haig Thomas and the Oxford crew as they changed their stroke and their rowlocks, deciding to use the Fletcher swinging gate, which was invented by Mr. Colonel Fletcher in 1902. Colonel William Alfred Littledale Fletcher was a successful oarsman for Oxford, as in 1890 he was part of the 8-man crew that ended Cambridge's run of 4 successive victories. He was also in the crew for 1891, 1892 and 1893, which were all victories. Fletcher became a coach in his first time at Oxford when learning a technique comprising a combination of swing and slide together with a lightning entry, which he taught to Cambridge crews in 1898 and 1899. This was said to be the catalyst in the creation of the 1900 magnificent Cambridge crew. Sadly, Fletcher missed coaching for the 1901 boat race as he was serving in the South African War. Upon his return, he invented the sliding gate as a useful training performance tool for rowing. After training with Fletcher's sliding gates and his crew becoming worse than previous in the year, Haig Thomas took a brave decision in changing his crew and disposing of Fletcher contraptions used on their boats, as it was believed they had found their strongest stroke, or Oxford had, for the last 7 or 8 years. After this change in focusing on perfecting the oarsmanship of the crew through continuous work on the water, despite weak spots in the crew, they made startling progress. It was proven although Haig Thomas may have been sidetracked by a few things while bringing together a crew for the boat race, anyone under his supervision received a great deal of sound oarsmanship. H.D. Hodder then claimed that with Haig Thomas at the helm, Oxford will come back on the upgrade yet again, even making the audacious claim that if the boat race was still 1 month away, Oxford would have had their best 8-man crew since they last won the event in 1923. Coincidentally, Nesbitt and his crew had arrived in Putney with the wrong stroke also. Nesbitt somehow realised that he had a crew member in W.G.R.M. Lowry, who had been the stroke for Leander, who won the Grand at Henley the previous year. The decision to appoint Lowry saw a seemingly mediocre crew become formidable. When completing a test run, and again comparing times against the Oxford crew, they had cut half a minute off their time. Following this, the Cambridge 8 appeared to go stale again, but to the relief of Mr. Nesbitt, part of his medical staff, Mr. Charles Rue, was able to skillfully nurse the crew along, allowing this 8 to be acknowledged as the most remarkable 8 ever to row in the boat race. Thanks to Mr. Nesbitt's continuous method and gruelling persistence on the cam, the 8's boat control was almost uncanny. Obvious detailed analysis was also conducted on the Cambridge crew, as they understood that they can go along at 12 strokes per minute, and with seemingly no trouble at all to over 30 strokes per minute, whereas Oxford did not seem to have any indication of analysis on their strokes, for them to only be described as clumsy, which was the same word used to describe Oxford crew's oarsmanship in 1924. But, reiterated by Hodder, with Haig Thomas working on their oarsmanship, Oxford's turn to win is now only just around the corner. The Yorkshire Post, on the 17th of January 1936, reported that Cambridge crew had rowed 11 miles in the snow as part of preparation for the second race conducted with both boats on the water at the same time. Part of the training was also to change seats while midstream. This was reported as a hazardous task, considering it was such a cold day. This further enhanced the test of steadiness in the water of the crew. This is in keeping with Mr. Archie Nesbitt's passion for high miles to be completed in training. The other aspect of this method, training in different conditions as well as beyond performance, is something that is very apparent in many sports, not just rowing, even today. Much of this reported training, conducted by the squads, is only really performed using generic 8 oar boats, maybe changing the equipment attached to the boat, but the crews would spend long periods of time on the water trying to perfect their oarsmanship. As well as this, it is clear that times achieved in training were actively published, allowing the crews to make training competitive. Training beyond performance is apparent throughout this period discussed. Also, giving insight into performance analysis in the form of strokes per minute is being taken into consideration, as well as efficiency of each stroke. The final piece of training has been training in different conditions had been demonstrated by the Cambridge crew in 1936. This being said, around the same time, 1924 to be precise, Harvard University had begun using something called the Leviathan. This is a new 20-oared boat. In theory, this boat would require greater stroke timing and efficiency to keep the momentum of the boat and balance moving forwards. In the time period discussed, nothing as unusual as this had been tried by either Oxford or Cambridge, yet later on in 1970, Oxford seemed to build an adaptation on the Leviathan, the Octolong, based on the suggestion of Route Captain Edwards, who had been Oxford coach for 21 years by this time. The Octolong is similar to the Leviathan, as it allows the coach to walk along the boat and perfect technique, yet is potentially more beneficial as it allows the coach to work directly with his 8-man crew while another crew practices in a conventional boat. In present times, rowers will use pools called tanks with generated waves in order to perfect technique and observe oarsmanship close up. Also in modern day, technology has been allowed much more training to be conducted indoors while perhaps there is harsh winters, so the extreme lengths of Archie Nesbitt getting his team to train for 11 miles in the snow is not needed. It's also very well documented that to become a blue in the modern day takes severe commitment with training twice a day and having nutritional and training plan of an elite athlete whilst being a full-time student and having to prepare for assignments and exams. This short clip coming up will explain what it takes today to become a blue.